Mateusz Stasica, PLA School. Today I'm here with Łukasz Gągała. We are going to talk about healthy relationships in business, sound relations in private life, but mainly about being fine and all right with our inner self, which is going to be a linchpin for literally everything in our life. Let's hear what he's got to say. Tell us, why is it worth listening to you at all?
First thing, I think that I'm a curious person and an enthusiast of life, and that's a proof that everyone can do that. And why is it worth listening to me in the context of work-life balance and relations? Well, I have a business which is accounting office, and I run it with my business partner Piotr Pesecki, with whom we are knowing each other for we've been knowing each other for 30 years, because we've met at the age of 8 years old. We've been playing separate sides on the football during a football match, and we during the break we have started talking, and we are talking up until now. So that's like a brief introduction into my length of relationships. And also, I'm a happy husband of my wife Paulina, with whom I also have a very, very long relationship, because even though we've been married for 2 years this year, we are in a relationship, well, also very, very long, because 21 years. So I have a clue about building relationships that last. It's like, for example, if you read a lot of business literature, there are these books from Jim Collins and his last book, Built to Last. It's in the context of building a business that lasts for a very, very long time. And also I have this perspective on relations, but also in business, because with Piotr we have founded our company 10 years ago. A couple of weeks ago, we've been celebrating our 10th anniversary, and we have started it from scratch. Basically, we had no connections, no clients, nothing. We had 2 clients on our day one, because our first client, our first real client, told us that he needs an accounting office with agreement, a company, and so we thought, okay, fuck it, let's just register it and run, because we wanted to check how operating in a business in Poland looks like. And from that point, today we have over 500 clients and 18 people on board. So we have grown into a bigger scale, let's say. And also, as to health and fitness, I have a history with bodybuilding, because in my youth I've been a very strong enthusiast of that sport. And then I had a break, let's say a meltdown, because when I started my work life, I totally ran out of balance, because I focused so much on work that I forgot about health, about proper diet, about exercising. And I started drinking liters of coffee, smoking cigarettes, and basically gained 20 kilos to my fall, and that was pretty problematic. But 5 years ago, I have decided that something has to go, and I pretty much switched to the brighter side of life and started running, and it became, I can say, an obsession to some extent. And also last year I have completed a double Ironman, which made me think that it's a little bit too much, and maybe all that obsession about sports isn't as healthy as it might seem. So I have a clue about work-life balance, sports balance, and generally balance in a broader context.
All right. So let's start let's start with smoking. How did you quit?
It's an interesting question because when I realized that I have a problem with it, I simply told myself that I need to stop smoking, and it's a usual way that most smokers or addicts whatsoever tend to quit their addiction. But it occurred that it's just ineffective in that matter because you only have a small portion of let's say iron will, and when you run out of it, it's basically impossible to not do the thing you're addicted to because it's stronger than your character. And I had this like episodes of quitting and going back to it, quitting and relapse. And what was the let's say motor of a change back in 2019 was the fact that I told myself that I have to like change the perception of who I am and somewhat change my identity. And I stopped identifying myself as just a normal person, and I started identifying myself as an athlete. And when I started identifying myself as an athlete, so as a person who goes to the gym, who runs, who tries different sports, I realized that smoking isn't a part of that identity, and it just has to go. And it helped me immensely because during 2019 I had these relapses as well. But by the end of the year, I was a person who is confident that stopping smoking is just a matter of time. And by the end of the summer 2020, I definitely quitted smoking. And what's very funny, it was like a day-to-day decision. So it wasn't like something big happened, but the change of identity that I've initiated in January 2019 just started to work in real life. And that was like an instant moment that I just quit doing that and never went back to it.
All right. So, do you think like changing this mindset, like transforming your identity, is the key? Is the easiest way to, I don't know, become somebody else in I don't know, like relations? For example, you have a relationship with a woman and you don't really, or multiple women, obviously consecutively, and you don't know what's happening and stuff, and you feel like you are just bad at it. So can you just simply transform like that? And do you think it works? Because it seems like you've been a smoker. You had been a smoker up until given period of time or given point of time, and like then you magically become this athlete and this good guy, so to say.
Uh, I don't know if that's the most effective way, but it obviously worked for me. And just like I want everyone to realize that there is no like magical pill that or this universal tool that can help you with everything in your life. It's just let's say one aspect or one tool in your tool set, so to speak. So it is effective, but if it does this magic in every aspect of your life, I have no idea. But I think it's a very effective tool if you are in the right mindset to initiate this change. Because, for example, we have right now exists this narrative that you have to have this morning routine, that you have to have work-life balance and everything, and it's correct. It helps. It is a good thing in general, but sometimes you don't have this headspace to perform this.
I just understand now why everybody wants to record in his own studio, like face to face, because you have a camera or you have multiple cameras and it just fucking goes.
Yeah, I think it's like, for example, with sports, when you have like team sports and individual sports, these are two different animals because team sports are not only about you and you can't control everything because sometimes your teammate might fall or have a bad day or whatever, and you can't pretty much control the result. And in individual sports, of course, your competition plays a role and you can't control them, but you control everything that you do. So the input of the training, your diet, and your performance on a given day, you can control all that. And it's similar with these online studios or cloud studios or the tools that allow you to, let's say, supposedly worry less about the result, but also it's giving up your control, because if you have your own studio, you control everything. You control the record buttons, you control the sound, you control the lighting, you control everything. And in these complex solutions, you don't control everything, and that's let's say key point, because there are also this plethora of endpoints that might fail.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with languages. If you compare like having a conversation, speaking, and having a conversation, speaking and having some kind of translator services, interpreting services, if it's a person or AI or some fucking software, it's the same because you are actually like giving up your control. And I think that in relationships and building relations, if it is private relation or business relation, I think if you want to be successful, you need to control it. And whoever is better at this relation has more control and more understanding. So yeah, as long as you are really good at controlling things and communicating, it's gonna go your way probably.
Yeah, definitely. And just as you said, it's like with languages, we have the same problem, because most people think that learning a foreign language right now is stupid, because you have all the tools, all the translators, ChatGPT that can like understand the natural language. But I think that the biggest threat in that regard is like the lack of understanding on a deeper level, this relation. Because for example, when you are watching a series on Netflix or some other platform, and you understand this natural original language of the series, you can spot the problems with translation. And sometimes the wording is right, but the context is completely off. And that's a huge problem, but that you understand the words, but you don't understand the message that's underneath them. And communication is not really about saying right things, but it's about saying right things in the right way, in the right context, and in the right emotional state. And without that, there's no communication. There's just exchange of words. Because it's for example, right now the ChatGPT introduced this new version for 4.0, and it's great for purposes of talking with someone who understands the same language as you are speaking. For example, yesterday I've been speaking in Spanish with ChatGPT. I've been talking in Spanish with ChatGPT, and everything is seemingly pretty well and pretty smooth. But you have this. It's like not a feeling, but you are pretty sure that you are not talking with a natural human being, because there's no emotions in that conversation. So even though you exchange some ideas, some words, something, it's completely different than speaking to a normal human being, because communication is something more than just exchange of words.
Yeah, there is this understanding and exchanging message. And I actually noted this quote down: understanding words versus understanding message. That's a good one. Before our another technical issue, we were talking about your dark side. So
Yeah.
it seems like you had this dark side, which was what, like self-hatred, or was there also some kind of hatred towards other people?
Not really. It was mostly self-related because sometimes I had this, let's say, bad emotions towards people because I thought that they don't understand me, that they underestimate me, and so on and so forth. And what's interesting about this is that I deeply believe that we have to reinvent ourselves before we can, let's say, start feeling positive about, let's say, everything. Because if you've met me, let's say, 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I was much less self-confident. I was much less self-secure. I felt pretty lonely at times, even though I had multiple people around me, and that was not their fault. It was my fault only because it was me who put myself in that position. Because it's like, for example, with relations. Right now, we have this narrative that people have to support you at whatever you do. And sometimes they don't, because they don't have this proof that you've done anything significant or you had any successes. For example, when you are a student and you have no experience in a business area whatsoever, and you go to your friends and say, "Hey, I'm gonna fuck Mark Zuckerberg out of his chair, and I'm gonna start something bigger than Facebook," everyone would look at you and say, "Dude, you're out of your mind. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You have no experience. You have nothing." And today's narrative would interpret that as hate because someone is not supporting you. But the truth is that you have nothing to give, or you have no proof of concept, and everyone is looking at you like as on a crazy person. And that's completely natural, that at times you don't have any support because you don't deserve it, to put it simply, because you have no credit to buy anyone's attention or anyone's support, and you have to build it up. So let's say 6 years ago, I had no credit, I had no successes on any field. I was out of shape, I was not really having a big company, and all the people that I thought were not supporting me were just stating the facts. "Dude, you are a dreamer. Dude, you don't have this and that." And that was not hate, that was just stating the fact. And when I started noticing that I can't focus on someone's attention, opinion, and so on, and focus on myself, what I can do to change my state, I felt that I have to, like I said before, reinvent myself. And and at my disposal were only self-hatred and this negativity towards myself. So I thought, what the hell? Let's use it as fuel to initiate that change. And I was hating myself so deeply, so strongly, that I simply forced myself out of this prison that I've built for myself from these negative thoughts. And it was like a rocket fuel that initiated this change and helped me to endure during those hard moments, because my story began with doing a lot of sports, endurance sports, and it's also a very let's say funny thing, so to speak, because I started with doing something that I hate most, which was running. I'm not a natural runner. I still don't enjoy it now, but I thought to myself, if I am able to do something that I hate, and I can perform it without, like, let's say, feeling guilt, without feeling any emotion towards it, I just do it, and there's no conversation in my head, I can do pretty much anything. And it seemed, let's say, crazy at that time, and it was a little bit before I was introduced to David Goggins, or I just found David Goggins. But after reading his story, I was so fucking sure that I can change the way I feel with just doing more uncomfortable things, that I simply had this proof that this strategy works. So I had nothing to myself other than this self-hatred. So I just simply switched the perspective and started to use it not as an excuse that I had these problems in life, but as a fuel to change it. And after I run these longer distances, after doing these more problematic things in my life, for example, solving problems in business, solving problems in relations, and achieving higher and higher distances in running, especially at this initial stage, I started feeling that, yeah, right now I have some credit that I can say, okay, you said that I can't run 5 kilometers, but right now I have run a marathon, even though I had no background and I was still overweight. And this thing allowed me to feel better about myself, to say, okay, maybe I'm not in a place that I want to be, but I still have some power to change my life. And after running my first marathon, this was at the late 2020, I was feeling miserable because I was weighing 95 kilograms back then, as far as I remember, and my knees were like hurting as fuck. But I felt this pride that I have done something that a year ago, when I've been smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, I wasn't even dreaming that I'm capable of. And that gave me this confidence that, okay, maybe I won't win any race, but I am able to persevere and suffer for a longer period of time to earn this prize. And this mentality pushed me towards signing up for half Ironman next year. And the problem with that was that I don't have a bike and I can't really swim, because I was able to, let's say, swim breaststroke, but it was not a full breaststroke, and I was swimming very, very slowly, and couldn't do more than, let's say, two swimming pools lengths. So that was pretty much a very pathetic state to begin with in triathlon. But still, I had this feeling that if I was able to complete a marathon without pretty much preparing for it, because the origin of that was pretty straightforward, because during the COVID, my friend and I started running together, because he's a much more experienced runner than I am, and I was also always very amazed by the distances and fascinated by what you can do in this long distance running. And my experience was only one half marathon, and he had this crazy idea. Okay, we can't sign up for any major race, so let's organize our own marathon. And I was, okay, when? In 2 weeks. And if you know me enough, you understand that the crazy ideas are ones that I'm most fond of. So I said, okay, what the fuck, let's do it. And that mentality allowed me to do more crazy shit through my life, because impossible disappeared from my vocabulary, because I think that everything that you can imagine, you can also achieve. And maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but with some effort in a longer period of time, it's absolutely possible. So it doesn't matter if you're in this very, very dark place or this very, very bright place. You can totally switch your life whenever you want to. The only thing you want to have is perseverance to just go through all the roadblocks that might appear, and they inevitably are going to do so.
Yeah. All right. So why at the very beginning you had to be in this dark space, and there was this negative Łukasz? Because right now we could see this negative Łukasz who was not successful, and right now we have this guy who deleted the word not possible or impossible or difficult from his dictionary. So why?
I don't know. I think it's a mixture of childhood experiences and the way I simply led my life, because I'm not a person from, let's say, entrepreneurial family. I don't have any background of any huge success in my closest childhood circle, let's say. And I never thought that I can achieve much. Even though I was pretty intelligent, never had problems in school. I was pretty good at sports and pretty good at anything I started doing, but I never had this assumption or idea that I can achieve any success. And with time, I started doing things that I felt I don't want to do in the long run. For example, working in the area of investment fund accounting, which was my original accounting background, wasn't something that I really loved or enjoyed much, but I confused myself into believing that it's a very good job, it's something that I want to do in a longer period of time. And when I was in this dark space, there was this mixture of not having time for myself because I've been constantly working, not having this health space because I've been running down the spiral of eating poorly, abusing caffeine, abusing alcohol, abusing cigarettes. And it's never a perfect place that you want to see yourself in, because the change starts with saying enough is enough and realizing that you have a problem in some areas. And if you fail to do so, you are simply like lying to yourself that you can be in this good space, and and this headspace makes you feel frustrated all the time, and that's a problematic state to be in. So sometimes when you go down the spiral, you simply can't switch it, and the further you go, the harder it is to jump back from that place. That's why I said that this self-hatred was rocket fuel, because I needed something to turn back the tide, basically.
All right. And this change, do you think that first, before you improve your relations with other people and like start to understand them, do you think like you need to first see your relationship with yourself and somehow amend that? And if that's the thing, did you find some support, like some therapy, or have you been reading some books, or it's just your intuition that you managed to see this relationship and somehow develop it and improve it?
I think it's a mixture of all these aspects. Although I had this intuition from very early stage not to engage into relationships that are, let's say, toxic, problematic, or whatever. And yesterday I've been talking to Norbert about it. That somehow I found myself not engaged at any stage of my life into any majorly toxic relationships, and I had this ability to identify all these problematic relations and simply end them, or just retrieve from them, because I believe that it was the major thing that I never really in my life had any long-term relationship that dragged me down. So that's one aspect. And as to this change, I think I had this intuition where I want to go, but needed to like change my perspective about where I am now and what I can do in the current moment. And as to support, I always had support of my wife, and I always had support from Piotrek, because we've known each other for a very very long time, and and they were supporting me through all the way.
Okay, how about Piotr and your relationship with this guy? Like, it seems like there are at least two platforms, like private one and professional one.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you cope with that? You've mentioned like you've known each other for 30 years.
Yeah.
So what the fuck?
Yeah, it's a very let's say long marathon, but I think we don't divide this, let's say, professional life and private life, because we are building company to help us lead the life that we want and that we chase, basically. And I think it all comes down to values that you are having. And if your value is, let's say, transparency, loyalty, truthfulness, and all these, let's say, positive or heroic ones, then you're good to go in pretty much any aspect of your life. And we have this fortune that we both share the same values, and even though we are totally different people, because we have different tempers, we have different perception of reality and interest and so on, we go along well because we share the same values. And that's the most important thing in running both relations and professional life, because if you share the values, you have no, let's say, indecision at play, because you can also have a discussion. And sometimes we have these fired up discussions about business, about the strategies that we take, about the routes that we are going to follow in the coming weeks, months, and so on. And even though we have this let's say, conflict sometimes at work, that we don't agree with each other, we can switch at an instant to not talking about business and issues at business, and just talk about something else. And it's like natural for me, but right now we have this narrative that you cannot separate yourself from your opinions, and you can't separate your emotions from your opinions, because when you look at I don't know, politics or social media or whatever, you always see this connection between who you are, what are your opinions, and your emotions. So for example, if you support one political party, you are not let's say, evaluated by who you are, but who you support. And that's a toxic assumption at its very core, because I think that people should be evaluated by their values and not by who they support and what is their opinion, belief, or whatever. Because it's like with skin color. Skin colors are different, genders are different, political opinions are different, but it doesn't mean that you are a bad person because you follow the right or left wing. It just simply doesn't matter in terms of values, because values are much more important than any other aspect of your life. And that's I think the most important thing when it comes down to my long-term relationships, that we all share the same values and principles in life. So it's easier to get along well if you share these values.
All right. So do you think that sharing values helps going through some arguments and stuff? Because I can imagine that during those periods of time, 30 years with Piotr, over 20 with Paulina, you've had multiple quarrels and fights. So what are your takes from those episodes of your life, and what can you share here? Like for me, this is very long period of time, and what's your experience with those fights and how to fight, not killing each other?
I think it also boils down to the values that you share, because values are much more important than opinions, emotional states, and so on. Because I have a very short. I'm a very short-tempered man. Like normally, I am very explosive. I have a lot of emotions in myself that I go through, which experience with meditation helped me to manage. But in general, I never step back during an argument, so I pretty much stand my ground and defend my positions. But after we finish an argument, I have this retrospective nature that allows me to dive deep into myself and say, hey, even though we fought, I think he was right, and I have to change my opinion, basically, because opinions are not facts. Opinions are opinions, and facts are facts. And sometimes you just have to change your opinion to become a better person, because it's like, for example, when you are in your 20s, it's completely natural that you want to party or whatever, rather than, I don't know, develop business or go into this hustle porn stuff, because most likely during that time you don't have this capacity to pursue something, because you want to experience as many things as you possibly can, which is pretty natural, because that's the way every child or young adult develops, experiencing some emotions and following some things. And as you grow up, you realize, hey, it's important to comprehend and to dive deep into yourself to see whether your values are calibrated with the way you lead your life, because if they're not, you experience the dark side that I've been talking about a while ago, and that's a very problematic thing when your perception doesn't match the way you lead your life. And basically that's why all of these arguments, fights, quarrels ended with success and ended with a change, because we were able to say, okay, we fucked this up, or we have a problem that we have to sort out. And in most of these cases, we have reached a conclusion which resulted in changing mine or someone else's mind. And that's something that results from the values, even though at the first glance you might say that it's not a value thing, it's something else, but it boils down to those values. If you share those values of truthfulness, of having an open heart, open mind, and being and doing the right thing, basically, you cannot miss doing what's right.
All right. So, if you let me, we could do a little, like, something like an exercise we do at PLA school. There is this way of describing things vividly and like in detail. So I really like this idea of A-B picture. So you describe this picture A and then picture B. So everybody can have his own view here, comparing those two pictures. And I wonder if you could present some, let's say, picture B and picture A in this, in your relationship with Piotr, for example. So possibly during this 30-year period of time, you had those wrong moves, great insights and conclusions, and then change of behavior. So could you do something like this for me?
I don't think that's possible, because I don't remember like any negative relation with Piotr, because we have this I don't know how to say that, but we have this connection on a level that doesn't allow us to pretty much stray off the right path. So whenever a problem arises, we just share it with each other. So we never reached a point when we felt resentment for each other or anything like that, because I will give you an example. Let's say we go to a meeting with a client, and we are talking, doing something, and after this meeting ends, and I saw Piotr doing something that I don't like, or I think is stupid or whatever, I just tell him right after the thing happened that, dude, you were off in that aspect. And the same thing happens in, let's say, other direction, because my nature is that I am a yes man. I just love doing new things, new stuff. If I could, I would extend my day to 100 hours and do all the stuff that I want to do, but it's unfortunately not possible. Even though I have deleted impossible from my dictionary, and Piotrek is, let's say, my I would say compass, or someone who shows me my true north, because whenever I have this tendency to accept something, do something, let's go into this or that, he's like, dude, stop for a second and think if that's a really good idea, because, well, maybe it is, but maybe you're just too enthusiastic to see these other layers that you're not seeing because you're in this rush. And our relationship, I think, with Piotr and with Paulina as well, is so amazing, because we never reached any phase of resentment, because we are just solving problems the moment they appear. So it's hard for me to describe this A and B picture, because it's not like with, for example, my health and fitness, that I have this place A, that I was overweight, out of shape, abusing my body and abusing alcohol and cigarettes, and my current self, that I'm leaner, faster, stronger, more capable of doing anything. And so yeah, in this particular case, I just cannot share this A and B picture, because or maybe I can in other way, because let's say 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, I was on a different level of development as a human being, simply because of my experience, because of everything that I do. So I do see that when we were in our 20s, we had a different relationship that we have now, because back then we had no experience in business, no professional experience, and so on, but and no resources as well. But what hasn't changed over the years was this connection, that we are simply just solving problems as they appear. And I think that's the key to having a successful relationship, because when you share the values and have this openness to just solving the problems as they appear, not letting anything out of your path, then you are just good to go, and everything falls in place. Because the funny thing about life is that we have all the puzzles, we have all the resources that we need inside ourselves to change our state, to change ourselves basically. But we just have to realize that and synchronize that with it. I used to have this concept of calibration, that whenever you have a trouble or problematic situation, or you're confused about many things, you just sit down and you think, okay, let it sink in. Let's see if the life I lead is the life that's connected with my values. Because sometimes you don't know what you want, and that's a problematic thing, because we have these urges. Let's say I want new Porsche, I want bigger house, I want house overseas, and sometimes we want it because we've been marketed to want it. And if you dive deep into yourself and ask yourself if that's something that I want to want, then you realize, dude, I don't fucking need that. That's stupid. And it's not that I, let's say, evaluate everyone through the same scale, because you have to find your own scale and evaluate yourself through your own scale, and evaluate other people through their scale, not your scale, because that leads to something that's full of conflict. Because if you input someone with your own values, opinions, and so on, you might just lead yourself down a path of destruction, because every person is different. And it's perfectly visible in this entrepreneurial space, that every entrepreneur says that people should be entrepreneurs, everyone should run their own business. And that's fucking bullshit, because let's say we have this woman who was very successful in business, and she started a family and has children, and at one moment, at one instant, she might take this decision that she doesn't want to run a business anymore because she wants to stay with her kids. And is that good or bad? It depends on the person. If it's good for you, then follow it. Why not? And for example, if you're a multimillionaire and you have this big company, at one place in time or at some point in time, you might take this decision that, okay, I don't want to run it anymore. I will sell my company and go travel around the world. And is it good or is it bad? It depends on what your needs are at a given moment. And I think the key to leading a successful life, successful relationship, and so on, is being on the same page in terms of values, in terms of needs, in terms of calibration with yourself. Because when you are calibrated with your values, with your needs, with the needs of your spouse or with the needs of your business partner, then you're simply good to go. Because it's impossible to run a business with somebody who looks in a different direction than you are. Because when you want to have a peaceful relationships at your company, you cannot play with someone who wants to squeeze every person in your organization like a lemon, because it simply won't go in a good direction. And I think that this calibration is so crucial for everyone, because if you calibrate yourself with your values and with the values of people in your closest circle, you will have a perfect life that you want, regardless of any other circumstance. Because there is this speaker or coach, Jacek Walkiewicz, who has this saying that if you weren't able to be happy in your small one-room apartment, you want to be happy in a great house with a swimming pool, because it's simply not who you are. So if you can enjoy your life, you will enjoy it on any platform that you have, regardless of anything else. And the only way that I have found working is being calibrated with your values and with your needs. And if these things stay in place, then nothing can pretty much shake you out of a good mood.
Yeah, that's deep.
It is.
Yeah. I'm gonna be a pain in the ass, and I'll stick to this A and B picture. But in another kind of relationship with Paulina, because you mentioned you are explosive, and me too. And I think I could describe this picture A and B here, but I strongly believe you are like better than me in this field. Like I could probably, how to explain this, find something for myself in this kind of comparison of your A and B picture, of your explosiveness and how you manage and cope with that and do not hurt other people, and like you behave as a normal, so to say, person who can control your emotions. So yeah, let's try and delve into this.
Well, I used to be a person who couldn't control myself. But as I said, I was very quick in righting the wrongs, and so to speak, because whenever we had an argument and I exploded like a fucking savage, within maybe not seconds, but sometimes hours or minutes or days, I would say to myself, "Okay, you just fucked up, and you need to make it right." And yeah, in this context, but as well, it's not something that was connected basically to her, or in case of Piotr, that was not something connected with him. It was something connected to me and only me, because it was me who fucked up, who said one sentence too much. So I think, and I'm a deep believer in extreme ownership, in terms of owning pretty much everything that you do in your life, because relationship takes two people, obviously, because it's a relation, so you have two ends. But if you have these shared values and you have this retrospective, let's say, maybe not character, but this ability to be retrospective about yourself, you identify that there are these aspects that are solely yours. So you are the explosive one. You have fucked up with something. Even though someone might say something that's a trigger for you, it's still your fault that you let that trigger work. And what worked for me in that area was meditation and focusing on what I can control. And even though it's hard for me to control my emotions at times, because like a couple of weeks ago I had a conversation with a client that really like is a pain in the ass, and I asked Piotrek to handle the rest of the conversation, because I was aware that I'm boiling inside, and if I keep going in that particular conversation, I would simply, I don't know, maybe not kill the guy, because that would be an overstatement, but I would simply explode and say things that shouldn't be said in a civilized way. I think that everything in this relationship things boils down to two aspects. One is these shared values, and two, not choosing to have a relationship with a toxic person at the moment, obviously, because people change, and it's not like that some people, well, maybe that's also going maybe too deep, but there are these, let's say, psychopaths, and they can't be changed. But hopefully we don't encounter them too often, and simply it will make our lives easier. But most people can change, and it's something that requires you to go deep within yourself and identify whether you're not a toxic one, because we have this tendency to underestimate other people in terms of their abilities to change, and overestimate our own self-beliefs and this tendency that we are so glorious and perfect and it's other person's fault. And what I think like plays this role, that it's hard for me to describe this A and B picture, is that I mostly identify problems in relationships with my own faults, with my own problems, with my own shortcomings, and in every argument I go back and analyze, given that the person that I was having an argument with was having a perfect clarity whether I am not the one who is problematic. And if the answer is no, after careful examination, really careful, objective, then I talk with that person and say, dude, you're off, not me. And when the fault is on my side, I say to myself, dude, you just fucked. You just fucked in this case, and you need to make a change in yourself. And that's why it's hard for me to describe this A and B thing, because as I said before, we have this tendency in pretty much every relationship that I have to straighten up the things that weren't straight as soon as they appear.
All right. So basically, it all comes down to examining and seeing this relationship with yourself and looking deeper within yourself, like trying to understand actually who we are, what we do, how can we do that, what are our motivations and reactions, and basically understanding this base is gonna influence everything else, like every other.
Yeah, because basically the relationships that we have are a mirrors of relationships that we have with ourselves in a given area or in a given aspect of life. And why I say that, when I was in this dark place, dark side, I had problems with staying in better relationship with everyone else than my friends, because I thought that everyone wants to kill me, that everyone has this problem with me, and so on. And that didn't allow me to go deeper within myself, because I hated myself so much. And right now I don't have this problem, because I perfectly understand that relationships with other people are a reflection of who I am and my own shortcomings. And with that guy that I've been talking a couple of weeks ago, it's also not entirely his fault, because of course he's annoying for me, but he's annoying because I allow him to be annoying, and I have my own problems in that regard that cloud my judgment, so to speak. And it's a very complex matter, because well, every relation is a mirror, and we just have to be very careful at doing these things, because mind you that every change takes time. So it's not like that I just make this decision that I will change, and in this instant I will change. I have to put effort in that. It's like this A and B for me is like a starting point and this end point, and the most important thing is not the change that occurred, but the way that I had to go through to be able to reach from point A to this point B. And it always takes time and effort to first identify a problem that you have, and second, make this decision that you will go through the change, because every change hurts. It's like with this quitting smoking or transforming from let's say couch potato to this fit person that I am right now, that it took change. It was not an instant. Like losing these kilograms, building this discipline was not something that I was born with. I just had to work my ass off to reach this level. And it is completely the same thing with changing your actions or changing your character. That, okay, first thing is identifying it. Second thing is be willing to put your ass on the line and simply go through the change. And third thing is going out of your own way and just do the work. And these things have to be combined, because when we look at ourselves, we have this tendency to glorify ourselves, to think that we are so perfect, that we can deliver everything. And even today, I sometimes have a problem to, let's say, motivate myself to go running or do something else. And recent death of my mother was a problematic thing, because it just let's say swept me out of the board with everything. That I just lost my routines. I lost my temper most often than not, and it made me realize that you have to be careful all the time to calibrate yourself with your values and with who you want to be, because these unexpected things just happen, and life just happens at times, and it requires effort to be someone, because even though you made this change from this unfit person to this fit person, you never know when your dark side appears and tell you, you know what, fuck the sports, fuck the diet, just abuse everything in your life, because it's so easy to fall back to the same place that you were before, because it's comfortable. So this discomfort caused by change, by willingness to change, by the process itself, is something inevitable, and you just have to accept it and be willing to go through it in a constant manner, because it's not something that, okay, I will be fit for or I will train for, let's say, 6 months, and after these 6 months I can just lay down on bed and reap the fruits. Because if you want to be fit, you have to work for it constantly. It's like with learning language, for example. If you learn it up to a point and then stop using it, stop being around it, you just lose that ability. And from my perspective, character is also an ability. You have to work on it, you have to chase it, and you have to be in constant contact with it, because otherwise you will just lose it. For example, it's like with this aspect of let's say love, and love is a noun obviously in terms of language, but love is also a verb in terms of performing it in actual life. So loving someone is not about some higher power. If you love someone, you put the effort to make that person happy, to go on compromises, and to just share that person's values and points of view. And the same goes with character. Character is not who you are from some, I don't know, higher power just gave you who you are, but you just shaping it. Character is like any plastic material. You just shaping it any way you want, and to shaping it in a given way, you just have to put effort to shape that. And the same thing goes with love, that to love someone is not just having a relationship with that person, but it's also working on that relationship. So yeah, if there are 4 letters that are the most important, is W, O, R, and K. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you maintain this sane and nice relationship, this love with your partner? Like, how do you work on it? Because obviously, there are people who just start a relationship, they marry him or her, and it just goes with the flow. And obviously, we shouldn't be doing this. We should be, as you mentioned, focused and concentrated, because this dark side could reappear. And if we are not aware of this dark side, it is gonna just hop in now and then, and actually rendering our life miserable. So,
Yeah.
how do you maintain this? Do you? I mean, it's gonna be just as a kind of joke, but there could be something in this. Are there KPIs or whatever?
Well, there are and there aren't. I think that relationships, especially with those who are very close to you, and maybe that's also something that I have. It's not a general rule, because there are people who prefer to measure everything in every aspect of their life and treat everything as a tool to, let's say, achieve some goals. And I do believe that having this, well, let's say, let's jump out of my intimate life, and let's jump into the company, because it's I think it will be a better example in this particular case. So we are running company with Piotr, and all of our decisions supposedly should be around maximizing the profit and the margin and so on, in terms of running a company. But what's most important are these values. So we want to have a place that everyone likes to work in, that we ourselves want to work in. And sometimes we make business decisions that are, let's say, killing our profit, but increasing other areas, like this atmosphere at work, like just being decent human beings. And the same thing goes into your intimate relationships. So even though we don't have these KPIs in this case, what we're both doing is, you just go along with your life. You have these things that happen, like business, friends, and so on and so forth. But you have to be regularly coming back and examining yourself, calibrating yourself, in terms of, okay, let's stop for a second and see if I don't neglect my partner, if I don't neglect the people that are in my close circle. And it's not only in terms of your intimate relationships, but other relationships as well. Because when you're calibrating yourself and you're saying, for example, that business is the most important thing for me, and I want to develop it, and so on and so forth. And even though I focus on this, I have to stop for a while and say to myself, dude, are you not neglecting your partner? Because last 2 weeks you haven't been going to a dinner, you haven't been preparing any food, you haven't been talking to her, because you didn't have time, because you had this conference, this big project, this overtime. And if you're just doing that, this constant calibration, maybe not constant, because you can't do this every moment of your life, because you wouldn't be doing anything else, obviously, but just regularly doing that. Let's say once a week, once a month, once a quarter, whatever. If you do that, then you just pay attention to that person, because sometimes it's not about even talking about some issues, because with both Piotrek and Paulina, we can talk or we can not talk, and both ways are good, are okay. Sometimes we just understand ourselves without saying a word, and this is the level of trust and the level of loyalty, I would say, that makes life very, very easy at this point. Because, for example, when we are going to meetings with Piotrek, we rarely right now go both at the same time to the same meeting, because we have such a level of trust that my decision is Piotrk's decision, and his decision is my decision at all times. And the same goes with any other relationship. If you calibrate yourself with these values, with the needs of the other person, you are good to go. And this is the work on the relationship. So, for example, most men think that their wife, their spouse, whatever, their girlfriend needs some fancy things, some fancy dinners, needs some money to invest in, but they rarely invest themselves into this relationship. And when you invest yourself into something, you say, okay, let's say I'm focused on business, but right now my wife requires attention, so I just stop some business deal or miss some business opportunity. These opportunities might come back at some point, or will come back at some point when I am eager to look for them. But when I miss this point, that this threshold of lack of attention just spills out, the relationship might be unsavable. So I am very careful about this in these crucial relationships in my life. And there are these people from this inner circle that have all of my attention. Other things I just consider like, let's say, extras. So this is the aspect that I think is universal in terms of relationships, intimate or not, that you just have to pay attention and be willing to get out of your own way to make that relationship work in the long term. Because if you want to push your career, and let's say you have this big decision that you need to move overseas to, let's say, pursue some business venture, then you have to answer yourself a question. If your spouse is not willing to go with you, then what's more important? And if you are like making a decision, okay, I'm not moving there, I'm staying with you, you have to make this decision and don't have any regrets, any resentment towards that, because that's just a decision. And it's like with missed business opportunities. If you miss one, you have two options. One is move forward, look for another one, or just pursue what you're pursuing right now. And the second one is repeat the same scenario, saying, "Oh, I'm so stupid, I should have done this or that." It's just a loophole that doesn't allow you to do anything else than just go down that spiral of negativity. And I think that's a very savvy thing to do when you just make a decision, stick to it, and discard any doubts that you might have towards this decision. Because all in all, whether the decision was good or bad, you can always change it. You can always amend the effects of the decision and still be feeling well, even if that decision goes not the way you thought it would work. So I think that it's just a matter of compromises, but not compromises in a negative way, but in a positive way. That, okay, I make this decision, I cut it out, let's say, all the negative emotions that are connected with it, and just live through it. And if you do that, then your relationships will always work fine.
Okay, so it all comes down to calibrating with what you need, with who you are and stuff. So how to do that? Do you have any tips? Because you mentioned, like, for example, because of marketing, and those guys are fucking better than you at everything, at psychology and whatever. So when they put this idea in your head, an idea that you need that fancy car or another apartment with a pool or whatever, it's so difficult to not to lose focus, right? Uh, it's difficult not to stay calibrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's difficult to stay calibrated. So how to calibrate yourself in those times of social media, constant attention stealers, because this is fucking thieving of our energy and time, social media. So it's kind of difficult right now, I think. And do you have any tips here in this area?
Any tips? I think it's just a matter of focus. It's like with doing sports. Mm, the first thing is that when you are, let's say, when you want to change the way you behave, you need to put some effort to make it happen. And after some time, things are starting to become habitual. For example, when you are doing sports and you're doing it long enough, you simply stop thinking about the necessity of doing something, going to a workout. You simply go there and don't think too much about it. And I think the same thing works in terms of relationships. So when you make this calibration process an element of your habit, or something that you just subconsciously do, there's no problem or trouble there. So people in marketing area are, let's say, better at psychology and other things, but they are not better at understanding myself than I am at understanding myself. But this, let's say, assumption applies only when you just take your time to or invest your time into knowing yourself. Because if you don't invest your time into knowing yourself, you don't spend enough time with yourself, and you're simply not giving yourself the space to think about it or to ponder it, then you will be subject to manipulation from other people. And if this thing is habitual, that you constantly calibrate yourself and think if these things are something that I want, then you're good to go in every aspect. For example, that's very visible when you go into this either entrepreneurial space or relationship space. That right now this red pill thing is huge among men, and if you see that it just doesn't work with you, it just doesn't rhyme with you, and you're simply aware of some, let's say, tactics, methodologies, and so on. You simply are aware of the phenomenon, but not fall into it, not fall into these dialogues that somewhat just doesn't match your values. It is easier to stay on track, because if you just ask yourself a question, if this is something I want, and the answer is yes, you follow that. And if the answer to the question, if this is something I want, is no, you simply should just abandon this thing. So it's like with running a business. It's hard to say whether it's better to have a huge corporation or a boutique firm or an individual or a sole proprietorship, because these are just different animals. It's like saying that I don't know, tennis is better than football. In what aspect? It boils down to your preference, your personal likings, to your inclinations towards something. Because if you just consider that things are not better or worse, they're just different, everything's just easier to get back on track in that realm.
All right. And technology then, how can it help us? because there are different apps that are like I don't know, acting in contrary to social media like Facebook or Instagram, and are supposed to, for example, I don't know, like somehow terminate when you scroll your Instagram too long or something like this. So, do you think that we can use technology in our case and like, yeah, help us to, I don't know, achieve this kind of balance?
Mm, I think we can, yeah, definitely. But I'm no expert on that. I don't use any kind of this type of productivity tweaks. I simply tend to be just aware of the time I spend in front of the screen, and I use simply the usage time monitor to see if I'm just crossing the line or not. Um, and I'm well aware that it's not a perfect scenario, so I have to, let's say, work on that. But I'm just no expert on that, so I don't want to elaborate further because I simply don't have any advice in this matter.
All right. I think I've got similar opinion. Like, I don't really use the apps that are going to somehow restrict me in doing social media or something like this. Like, if it is not deep inside me, then fuck this. Like some kind of artificial barriers that we are imposing on ourselves that isn't gonna help, because deep down you are still in this dark mode. So what's the point, right? So we should really work on our fundamentals and yeah, like I want to stop scrolling. If I don't want to do this, then some artificial restrictions like another app, is it right? I don't think so. Like, yeah, we should be really looking deeper into things, I guess.
It's like, for example, you have this right now. There's this narrative that you have to be perfect in every aspect of your life. For example, when you look at certain entrepreneurial groups, there are these believers that you have to follow a perfect diet all the fucking time, 100%. You have to wear blue light blockers every fucking night. You have to use some supplements. You have to expose yourself to sunlight. You have to wake up at 5 a.m. You have to have this 5-hour morning routine. And I think all of this is bullshit when it's not calibrated with what you want. Because, for example, there are some guilty pleasures in life, or cheat meals, or just doing things that simply entertain you, and there's nothing wrong with that. For example, when you're going out with friends for a dancing party just to have some fun, it's not a problem because it's unproductive. Let's just call it. It's unproductive. It doesn't make you earn more money. It doesn't make you, I don't know, extra followers, whatever. But the fact that something is not productive business wise doesn't mean that it's not productive life wise, because life doesn't consist only of making money, only of making fame and fortune, because these things are important when they are something that you want. And sometimes, for example, when you're going out to a dinner with your wife, with your or with your friend or whatever, you don't expect it to become a business venture, because it just fucking doesn't matter. When I'm, let's say, traveling to some other country, I don't want to post it entirely on my social media, even though it might seem cool. I want to enjoy the experience. I want to be there with my wife. I want to enjoy it. I don't need cameras. I don't need extra splendor or prestige that it might generate in social media. Sometimes I of course use that, but most of the times the idea is completely different. You just spend time with people for the sake of spending time with people and not expecting any gain from that business wise. And this kind of mentality that you have to nail everything to perfection, I think this is toxic mentality. Because if you want to nail your every fucking day, that you don't have any freedom in it, that you don't have any life in it, that you just live like a robot, Like, for example, you wake up exactly at 5 o'clock, you just meditate for an hour, you take a cold shower, you do some other stuff, then if it helps you, super, just do it. But sometimes these routines that help you become rituals that you just do for the sake of doing them, that don't help you, but you want to just check another thing on your checklist. And I think we should treat all of those things like the same, because that's why I didn't. That's why I said that I don't use KPIs in terms of relationship, because relationship is something that just flows. And what's the most important thing in a relationship? Current moment, not some goal that might change in let's say 2 years. Because, for example, you might set a KPI of, let's say, buying new house in 2 years, let's say. But in a year, you might say, you know what? I don't want to live in this country. Let's move to, I don't know, Australia. And what's most important? This fucking KPI that you have to pursue so diligently, or just the flow that you just don't want to do it? Or another example, it also works in business, that you have this, let's say, 5-year growth plan, and then, let's say, COVID appears, or a war appears, or whatever appears, or you just die. Then what's the most important thing? The fact that you just died, or these KPIs? You are not able to just deliver everything just because you said you will. So these KPIs and other stuff are important if they help you to achieve this ultimate goal, which is just having a good life that you will remember yourself and you will be proud of, or you are simply just lying to yourself that you want these things because other people want it. Because when you look at people, there are these people who are super successful, and it's not connected with money, it's not connected with fame. It's just connected with the fact that they are doing what they want to do, and they are wanting what they want to want. And that's the most important thing. And it, as I said before, and I will just repeat it like a broken record, that you simply have to calibrate yourself to your values. You have to identify your values and calibrate your life to those values. Because why we are in relationships that are toxic, why we are in a relationship that suck, mostly because we don't know what kind of relationship we want. And as soon as we identify that we are not in the relationship we want, we have two options: terminate this relationship, this is the most, let's say, the easiest way, or shape this relationship to the way we want. Sometimes it's impossible because your vision just doesn't match the vision of your partner, and it's a natural thing. It's not a problem with you, it's not a problem with your partner, because you are both allowed to have different visions. And if I'm, let's say, a homestayer, I don't like traveling abroad, whatever, and my partner is a traveler, wants to change the place they live in every month, let's say, then it's not a problem that my vision is better or their vision is better. It's a problem that our visions are different, and it's no use trying to match that, because it's simply impossible. So solving unsolvable problems is not something anyone should pursue, and it's, as I said, it just boils down to your values. If you follow your values, then you cannot fail. You simply cannot fail.
Right. So many wise words.
I'm old.
Are you? I just remembered, those business celebrities who are like, I don't know, bragging about not drinking alcohol. Like, if you want this, and I don't know, you are sick or unhealthy, or this is your medical condition, okay. But there are so many braggers who make a thing out of this, and they shouldn't, because it's like, what the fuck? If you like scotch, and the taste of things, the products containing alcohol is just, you won't find it elsewhere. So, like, have a scotch or brandy or a beer. that is, really good quality and is gonna serve you as. I totally understand that the alcohol is toxic, but on the other hand, for your mood, it is positive.
Yeah, I would basically equate that to, let's say, food, because processed food is also toxic. If you abuse it, it will be detrimental to your health. And the same thing goes with alcohol. And basically, if you go deep into that nuance, you will say, hey, breathing is toxic. I'm living in Warsaw. It's like the air here is not of the top quality. Oh, fuck, I'm gonna die. So maybe it's better to stop breathing. If you boil life down to nuances, then everything is toxic. Communicating with people is toxic because someone might, let's say, step on your foot and make you angry.
Actually, even the air you're breathing is not good for you, because fucking oxygen is the very reason why everything burns. So actually, I've been listening to a guy who, on this chemical perspective, breathing kills you.
Yeah, life kills you. Basically, we are born and we are going to die. Those are two things that are inevitable in life: the fact that you are born and the fact that you're going to die. And whether it's sooner or later, it comes down to the life you lead. But the fact that you are I know that you are drinking occasionally alcohol won't change much, because we are making so many bad decisions, and basically living the life that we don't want is far more toxic for our organism than drinking occasional beer. For example, if you travel to a new place which is famous for, I don't know, brewing beer, like Belgium, going there and not drinking beer, I don't know. For me, it would be a sin not to just taste it, not to experience that. It's like I don't know, going to Portugal, going to Lisbon, or going to Porto, not drinking Porto and not eating pastel de nata. It's like, what the fuck? Because it contains some sugar, it doesn't mean it will just kill you at an instant. And what I think is that most of these people who are these dogma followers are simply full of shit, because no one is doing everything 100%. And it's like with all those people who are, let's say, hustlers, and they say that, yeah, I work every day 14 hours and I sleep 2 hours every day and I don't eat nothing. It's like, dude, there are some people who have this medical condition that they are unable to sleep, and that's just their medical condition. That's the let's say, characteristic of their body, their individual biology. But when you are a standard human being, you just need sleep, you just need rest, you just need sometimes to not do anything. And the longer I am an entrepreneur, I understand the fact that there are periods that I hustle like a fucking savage. I just work all the fucking time. I don't get tired, and I can do, let's say, tons of sports and so on. But then winter comes, there's less sun in Poland, I feel worse, and I just decrease my my movement, my activity, and I work less. And it's a normal thing that you sometimes identify this the need of yourself, that, hey dude, you just have to slow down, and it's completely normal. And saying that you should live your life in accordance to some rules that you set upon yourself is, well, if it helps you, great. I'm not like getting in your way. But if you identify that you're just fucking tired of following these 5-hour morning routines, then fuck that. I remember a conversation of Adrian Gorzycki and Krzysztof Stanowski, where Krzysztof said that he doesn't use any biohacking routines, and his routine for productivity is getting up and going down to work, just work. If you want to let's say make something become a reality, you work towards it. So if you want work done, you don't need 5-hour routine. You just need to work. And it's as simple as that. So if something boils down to achieving your goals, you have to think, okay, what do I need to achieve this goal? So if my goal is to have a good relationship, I need to pay attention to my partner. If I want to have a big business, I need to work on that business. And no routine, no ice bath will change that. It might help you, of course, but if you have to do work, you need to do work, and nothing will change that. So if you want to prepare for running, you need to run. And it's as simple as that. And it's a very simple rule. And of course, we can say nuances like someone who doesn't have legs won't run and so on. But it's not the point. The point is that if you want to be good at something, you have to just do it. So if you want to have a good relationship, you have to work on your relationship. And no Mercedes, no gold will change that. Because if you're not working on a relationship, but on something else, you're simply missing the point. It's like, for example, not having time for your kids, but instead buying them iPads, cars, whatever. It won't make that relationship better. It will just be something that's a substitute for what a relationship should be.
I told you that you look quite nice when you mentioned that you are an old dinosaur, which is probably not true. How old are you, by the way?
I'm turning 37 in 10 days.
37.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what do you think about men using face creams? Do you use face creams and stuff?
Of course, I'm using face creams. I think that taking care of yourself in terms of nourishing your body, looking good, and so on, is just a normal thing. Like, for example, if that's your preference, if that's something that you want, there's nothing wrong with that. For example, I have some friends who are laughing at me for the fact that I am shaving my legs, and I'm shaving my legs because it just looks better than having this hair all around. And also, I use many, let's say, the hygienic applications or not operations, but procedures to just to just maintain better health. It's like, for example, being lean. What's bad about it? Like, if someone is not fat, if someone is not looking like a lumberjack, it doesn't mean that he's not masculine. I think that's one of those superstitions that should be discarded.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to delve into. Like, what do you think about this Polish mentality and the way we see masculinity, like we as men? Because if you publicly say that you use some fucking serums and face cream, and from now and then you actually do peeling or maybe
Use Botox or whatever.
yeah, they're gonna laugh about this probably. Majority of people, majority of men. So, do you see this issue too? And do you think it changes? And how do you actually see this masculinity?
I think that masculinity is not about what you do, but about who you are. So basically, well, these two are obviously intertwined, but I think that the problem is with perspective. I mean, I see the issue when I ponder about it. I just see it, but when I don't, I simply don't care about this because I have my own values. I know who I am, and I think that it all boils down to your self-confidence. It boils down to what you know works. It's like, I don't know, running a business. When Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos went on their venture to become the people they become and to build businesses that they set off to do, everyone was laughing like, dude, you're fucking crazy. And they might have fell in that loop of negativity, in that spiral, but they chose not to do so. And I think that the same case goes with masculinity. It doesn't matter if you're tall, if you have beard or not, if you, I don't know, drink beer or not, if you are fatter or slimmer. It's just not something that defines you as a man. Uh, so I think that everyone should lead the life that they deem valuable, and if they deem so, it's just up to them. And it's not up to me to judge whether someone is more masculine if they're fatter or slimmer or leaner or more muscular. It doesn't fucking matter really.
Okay, that's gonna be some nice icing on this cake of calibrating yourself. And
Yeah.
how do you perceive yourself deep down? Alrighty, right. I would
Yeah.
love to have another conversation with you on dieting, because we've been talking for almost 2 hours now, and our technical issues. So it's quite a lot of time. And I think I'm gonna have more questions on this mm, dieting perspective. And I know that you can give me quite a lot to ponder on, and yeah, maybe even use it in my private life and my uh, health orientation. And yeah, practically I really love to try new things. So I am constantly looking for this inspiration. I've been doing keto, not keto, but I haven't tried raw meat yet. So that's probably a thing to do. But I know that you need to have a nice source of meat that is healthy, and yeah. So
Definitely, due to some parasites or other uh, not too cool stuff that you might encounter in raw products in general.
problematic, since I've been eating food that is organic. So so from some private farmers, and it's never seen laboratory. So that would be tricky eating this kind of raw meat. So not yet, but yeah, we're going to do that if you're willing.
Sure.
Thank you for today. That was epic, and I love your English. I'd love to be as good and as successful as you, given that you've had a break. You told me so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
you've been doing some great lessons in some great school recently.
Of course. Of course, I'm using your services with German, and it's my pleasure, and I'm very happy with the results. And I believe that I can achieve this level of fluency with my German as well, because uh, like talking a different language is expressing your energy in a different manner. Because as we have said in the beginning, languages are not only about exchanging the words, it's about exchanging energies, and communication is about so much more than just words and meanings.
Do you think German can be this dark side of yours, like Łukasz, who is a little bit more explosive and war-like?
uh, I don't think so. I think it German might be this mm, upgrade to Łukasz, who is not chaotic in his mind, because German is this very tidy, very practical, very schematic language. Uh, yeah, very structuralized, and I think it's like something that might help me with being more connected, basically. because for example, Spanish is a completely different animal. It's like the language of high temper, of very, very strong energy, and German is like, just do what you fucking have to do and do it the right way. Yeah, and that's what I love about German. It's so forceful, it's so strong, so heavy. It's great.
Yeah. Do you think that speaking in German, you'll have to be like more focused and know well what you want to say in comparison to Spanish that is more chaotic, and you can be more chaotic in Spanish and still maintain the conversation? I think that in German it is not so much possible because of the structure, because of this noun at the end of the sentence thing. So what do you think on this?
Yeah, definitely. It's like you have to be more construction oriented in terms of building sentences in German, because sometimes the word order might like put your entire meaning into trash. So yeah, I think that German requires more being more savvy of what you're going to say. Definitely.
Okay. We could have a conversation on languages too, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's a fascinating aspect. I think that it's like with sports, languages transfer to so many aspects of our lives, like sports transfer to so many aspects of our lives, that all of these things are intertwined. So like you have this work-life balance, and I think that the word balance should be the focus. It's not like work-life or life-work, because these two things are so much connected, because I identify myself as an athlete, as a husband, as an entrepreneur, and which one is more important than the other? I don't know. I think they all are of the same importance, because they all are a part of me, a part of my character, of who I am, and trying to artificially dissect them and separate them is, I think, it's a mistake. If you're looking for balance, it's not like you have 33% of this at 33% of this, or 33% of this. You should look at to the long term and see if you are balanced within that long term. It's not like you work for 8 hours, and for 8 hours you entertain, because as I said before, there are periods when I focus solely on work, and I work, hustle, and I feel super happy. And there are periods when I'm just like, oh fuck, I don't want to work, and I just like work for 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, and spend my time on different areas of life and still be in the same mood. I think it's just like balancing that over a longer period of time.
So when you said that it's like 33% this, 33% that, I just thought that actually it's like you are 100% in between those.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could wrap up our whole conversation. I hope that everybody here gets something from this whole convo. And yeah, Łukasz, thank you very much for your insights, and that you let me enter your life quite privately and
privately, deeply. Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so hearing you sometime soon, and
sure,
thank you, audience, for your attention, and we keep in touch. Stay tuned for part 2 to be continued.
Definitely. Take care.
Cheers.